Mark here, and welcome to the 10 Acre Woods, the 10 Acre Woods Craft Edition. Now this video is sponsored by Xtool, the makers of the Xtool D1, M1, and the new and improved, just out in the next few days, this is kind of a pre-release, is the Xtool Fire Safety Kit. So they've been working on this, and of course fire safety is very important when you're dealing with laser and also here on the farm. We've had a number of fires here in the last year and previous years in neighborhood farms. So this guy here is no substitute for leaving your machine unattended, but there has been some pretty close calls from people I know that have had laser equipment and it has caught on fire. So we start out by opening this up. Packaging on this is second to none. Just wonderful. 3M stickers. So this is to mount all of your sensors and your hub. So you want to put that aside for later. Now getting into it, the main box here is, if we can get this thing out. Like I said, packaging is to the micron. So here it is. Here is the unit that holds the CO2. So this is a CO2 fire extinguisher, and I believe it will hold 4 cartridges in here. So you got 4 shots. So we'll set that aside here. Now we have, of course, our power supply here. And we have our power cord here as well. Now, digging in, we've got a couple boxes in here. This little box here, it looks like it houses the clips to run all your cables. So there are sensor cables, and this looks like the air tube or the CO2 tube. That extinguishes. So in the box here, they're all nicely lined up. You can see them down here in this corner in the bottom. Those are your sensors. Now they've got, what do they have here? They've got 5, I don't even know what kind of sensors they're called, but there's 5 of one type of sensor. And then there is one sensor that actually, I believe, goes on the head of your laser tool. So it will mount onto the side of it as it's doing its rounds. And that is a sensor there for that. These little guys here, they look like little dome cameras. So they go on the sides of the machine. So there'll be one for each side. So this here, I believe, is what they call the hub. So the hub will hook up into your fire extinguisher unit, and then you have a number of ends in there, connector points. One of them is yellow, which matches with this little guy that goes on the head, on the laser head. So we'll assume that it goes into there. And the other 5 are likely the other 5 sensors. So that is your hub. And then what else do we have? Oh, right, yes. So when it senses a fire, it will actually shut down the machine. So this looks to be on-off, probably a wireless plug, so that the unit, when it senses a fire, can shut the power down to the machine. So that's what that is. And the final thing in here is your cartridges. So here are 4 of your CO2 cartridges, and there they are. A little bit bigger than, from what I recall, to the airsoft guns or the pellet guns from when I was a kid. This is quite substantial. So those are the CO2 cartridges. And you can get refills depending on how many fires you're planning on having. You can buy the refills for it. So that's it. So we are going to put this stuff together here. I'll hook it on to my M1 Xtool laser, and we'll see how she goes. So I was just getting ready to install them, and I thought you want to make sure that the surfaces are clean. So I've got isopropyl alcohol here and a clean paper towel. So I am going to, any of the surfaces that I'm going to stick these two. I want to make sure I get the back of this, and then I'll wipe down. I think I'm going to put it on the side just for cable management. Everything can be on the side here, tucked away, since the machine's over on this side. So just making sure that you clean all of your areas, make sure they're dry before you apply them so that it adheres properly and doesn't keep falling off and having to use carpet tape or something to mount these. So it's now the next day. I wanted to get a fresh start on this since I hadn't eaten dinner when I recorded the first half of this video. So I have hooked it up to the M1. Now, I showed you there were 4 cartridges for the CO2. Now the way that works is this fire setup is good with enclosed units, so not just the M1, any enclosed laser engraver that is less than 0.13 cubic meters, which I believe is 4.5 feet, but I'll put all the conversions down here on the bottom. If it is that size, then the 4 cylinders is recommended. If you have an enclosure that's a little smaller, 0.065 cubic meters, had to remember that, then you can actually use 2 cylinders on that. So we're going to take a look here at the way I hooked up my M1, and it's just making sure that you have all those wires tucked in nicely so they're not going to get snagged on anything. All right, so here is the fire extinguisher unit, and this is the sensor hub. So what I've done is I've got the bottom plate out of here right now. I'm going to actually use a flashlight because it's a little dark. So there's a little notch in the bottom plate, which I actually have out. And that is where I've run the wires and, of course, the tube for the CO2 gas. So all the wires come in there. And if you notice that I have put the wire harnesses or the holders, I've mounted them to the side. Behind that metal plate is wires for the for moving parts, which is you don't want to put any kind of wiring in there. So I had to run it along here. I had to make sure that my sensors are down below the bottom of the head because, and that's more important on this side as well as on the front, because the head does get close to those sides. So basically I've started with this one here, and I ran it around, and I put 2 on the corner, and then I ran it across. There's my other one, and then both those wires run into these 2, and then they go down. And I've got the same thing happening on the other side. I do have an extra harness there because that's the one that goes on the head. That one was the one that was a little tough to do. Let's see if we can get in here and have a peek at this. So it runs across, and then it actually goes up and comes over and comes into this unit right here. So it goes through there, runs down, and you can kind of see it sitting right in there. And then it comes over, and I've attached it at the back here. Now, of course, you need some slack to happen with this. So what I did is I want to make sure that it's over all the way to its furthest position, and it has enough room there so that when this comes back over, it's not going to get caught. Now keep in mind the clearance on this is very tight. If we go in and push this all the way back, you will see that that is quite the clearance in the back. So you really have to watch that. Make sure you move things around before you actually power it up. And work with it. So those are the 4 sensors. We've got one there, we've got one there, we've got one here, and then we've got the one back here. And then the last sensor is sensor 1, they call it, which is this one that is on the side of the head. And I put it flush with the bottom of the head. So that's it. So now we're going to get into testing this. because there is a full test procedure that is outlined in the manual to make sure, of course, all the sensors are sensing flame. So it does have an algorithm. There are 3 stages. The first stage is a quiet or a slow beep. And then the next stage is a louder beep. And then, of course, third stage, you can guess what happens. It goes into the loud beep, and then the CO2 is released. So we're going to walk through the testing of it, and then we're going to load up the cartridges. So the first thing we're going to do is on the fire safety box itself, on the back, there is a switch, a test switch. So you want to push that in the down position, and that will put it into test mode. I've taken the bottom cover out just so I can get a lighter in here, and we move the lighter, and we can see that the one sensor is working. We get the red flashing off, and we have all greens. Then we do the next sensor, and that one's working. We will then do the back sensor, and that one's working. This sensor is on and good, and the last sensor is on the head itself, so we just like that there. Oh, actually we got multiples going off here because we're in the center. So you can see there's 4 of them, and if I move my hand I might even be able to get all 5 of them going. But you can see how sensitive it is to that flame. Alright, so installing the gas canisters, if you look here, you'll see that they are threaded. So they do get screwed in. So the first thing we need to do is unplug the unit. So cut off power to it. And for ease of viewing, I'm going to also unplug the sensor box and the hose. And the hose just gets unplugged. It's just a friction fitting. It goes in by pushing it in, it locks in place. And then when you want to pull it out, you push this little collar down and then pull it out. So what you want to do here is you want to squeeze the sides of the box, and then that pulls out. And here you go. So you can see there, if you can see that, it says A and B's. So A is this one, and B is this one and this one. So what happens is if you were running a smaller unit like a 0.065 cubic meter, you would put your 2 in here. And then you put 2 empties in this side, but you've got to have 2 empties to start off with, I would imagine. So the plan is not to have fires, is what it boils down to. All right, so we will grab our canisters that I conveniently put out of reach right here. And they are standard threads, so righty-tighty, a lefty-loosey. Okay, here's one, and we'll get the other 3 in here. Now, when screwing them in, you want to make sure, like screwing anything in, that if you have any binding that happens, you want to back thread it and go back in. You don't want to strip anything. So they're all nice and flush, they're all even, and there we go. So ready to put it back together again. So just like that, it's the bottom, top, and it just snaps back together again. So we will then go and hook up everything here, and then we are going to just push our hose in. Good to give it a little tug back out just to make sure it is in there. When this pressurizes and it's not tight, you want to make sure that it's not going to blow off and be ineffective in your enclosure. So I do want to remind you that I wouldn't attempt this at home. I have hazardous materials training as well as fire safety training. So I've got all the equipment I need to make sure that if it does get out of hand, I do have an alternate fire extinguisher here. I've got additional exhaust ventilation running from this CO2 laser engraver, both exhausting outside because I know that the power is going to get cut to this. So there likely will be some smoke in here, I don't know if the fire alarm that's in this room is going to go off. It may. But I've put in some cardboard, and I've set the settings to 100 power and 6 millimeters a second on engrave. So we're likely going to see something happen in there. I've also installed a camera inside here, which I'm going to start the recording of right now. And now that it is recording, we will hit start. Okay, we've got our first warning. See, there's some smoke happening. Fire coming underneath it and over top. Got our second stage. At this point, you'll know. And that fire has actually gone out. So after multiple attempts, I haven't been able to take it to the stage 3 yet. So I put some paper in there and crinkled it up just to see what'll happen there. All right, that did it. I had to light it on fire, but I will hit the top button to cancel it. We should be good. Okay, I waited too long to hit the button. That was the second shot, so about 20 seconds. And there's no fire left in there. So that did it. It took multiple attempts. Apparently I can't start fires. It's not too bad smoke-wise. The unit has shut down, so it's completely off. The fire extinguisher is powered separately. I don't have my fire alarm going off in here, but that's not to say that it won't, and the wife upstairs will get annoyed with me. So I'll leave this guy on. So that's it. It fired off both canisters. The light on here now is saying the CO2, the light is on. So that would mean that your CO2 is now empty and you need to refill it. So I haven't had too many issues with fires. Flame ups are one thing. And of course, giving you the first primary signal of a slow beep, that alone is going to bring you over to the machine because you should always be within earshot of it. So I would say this was a success, caught a fire in it, and the unit put it out. Now I will put links to both the Xtool M1 here and the fire safety kit down in the description. If you click on that link and go over there, you can have a look at it and see what it's all about. If you purchase anything while using that link, then we get a little bit that comes back to our animal rescue farm here. So that's much appreciated. So that's it. Until next video, take care, stay safe, and we'll see you then. Bye-bye.